The living room felt smaller than usual, even though nothing had changed. Same beige sofa. Same coffee table with the glass top that always needed cleaning. Same framed photos of happier times that now seemed like elaborate lies. Simone watched her best friend of 15 years bounce a curly-haired toddler on her knee. Denise had always been dramatic, but today she seemed nervous. Her hands shook slightly as she adjusted little Cameron's shirt. "I need to tell you something," Denise said, her voice cracking. "I've been carrying this for 3 years and I can't do it anymore." Simone's husband Brandon shifted in his chair across the room. His face had gone pale, which was impressive considering his deep brown skin rarely showed that kind of reaction. He kept clearing his throat. "What is it?" Simone asked, keeping her voice steady. Her heart wasn't racing. Her hands weren't sweating. She'd learned to control those responses 6 months ago. Denise took a deep breath. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. "Cameron isn't my ex-boyfriend's son. He's Brandon's. We've been seeing each other for 4 years. I'm so sorry, Simone. I'm so sorry." The silence that followed should have been heavy. It should have crushed the air from the room. But Simone felt something unexpected bubble up inside her chest. Laughter. She pressed her lips together hard, biting the inside of her cheek until she tasted blood. Her shoulders shook, but she disguised it as a sob. She covered her face with her hands, not to hide tears, but to hide the smile threatening to break across her face. "Simone," Brandon started, standing up. "I can explain. Just happened. We never meant to hurt you." She looked up at him through her fingers. The man she'd married 8 years ago looked terrified. "Good. You should be." "How long have you known?" she asked Denise, her voice barely a whisper. "Since I got pregnant. I took a paternity test when Cameron was born. I'm sorry. I thought about telling you so many times, but I was scared. We both were." "We?" Simone lowered her hands. "So you've both been lying to me for 3 years. Probably longer, since you said the affair has been 4 years. Brandon took a step toward her. "Baby, please. Let me explain. We can work through this. Marriage counseling, therapy, whatever you need." That almost broke her. The audacity of him calling her baby right now. The assumption that she would want to work through anything with him. Simone stood up slowly. She walked to the window and looked out at the quiet street. It was a Saturday afternoon. Normal people were doing normal things. Walking dogs. Washing cars. Living their lives without betrayal, sitting in their living rooms. "I need you both to leave," she said calmly. "What?" Denise clutched Cameron closer. "Simone, we need to talk about this. We need to figure out what happens next." Simone turned around. Her face was composed, almost serene. "What happens next is you leave my house. Both of you. Take the child. Go." "Simone, this is my house too," Brandon said, his voice taking on an edge. "You can't just kick me out." "Actually," she said, walking to the credenza and pulling out a manila folder, "I can. These are divorce papers. You're being served right now. And according to the restraining order inside, you have 2 hours to pack your essential items and leave the premises. A moving company will deliver the rest of your belongings to whatever address you provide within the week." Brandon's mouth fell open. "What? You can't. When did you? This is insane." "What's insane is thinking I wouldn't find out. What's insane is you using our joint account to pay for Denise's car repairs last month. What's insane is you telling me you were at work conferences when you were actually at her apartment. What's insane is believing I'm stupid enough not to notice." Denise stood up, shifting Cameron to her hip. "You knew? How long have you known?" Simone smiled then. Really smiled. It wasn't kind. "Long enough. Now get out of my house." "Our house," Brandon insisted. "I have rights. You can't just." "Check the deed, Brandon. I inherited this house from my grandmother. It's solely in my name. Always has been. You have no legal claim to it. My lawyer made sure of that. Just like he made sure to trace every dollar you've taken from our joint account. Every business dinner, that was actually you whining and dining your mistress. Every overtime shift, that was you playing house with her and your son." Brandon's face shifted from shock to anger. "You've been planning this? For how long? Does it matter?" Simone walked to the front door and opened it. "You have 2 hours. The clock started when I opened this door. I suggest you start packing." Denise hurried toward the door but stopped in front of Simone. "I really am sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened." Simone looked at the woman she'd called her best friend. The woman who'd been her maid of honor. The woman she'd supported through every breakup, every job loss, every crisis. "Nothing just happens, Denise. You made choices. Every single day for 4 years you chose to lie to me. You chose to sleep with my husband. You chose to have his baby and let me throw you a baby shower knowing the truth. Those were choices. Own them. Denise flinched and hurried out to her car. Brandon grabbed Simone's arm. We're not done talking about this. She looked down at his hand on her arm, then up at his face. Actually, we are. My lawyer will be in touch. Don't contact me directly. And let go of my arm before I call the police and tell them you're violating the restraining order before you've even left the property. He dropped his hand like she'd burned him. 2 hours, she repeated. Starting now. She watched him storm upstairs, already on his phone, probably calling his own lawyer. Good. You need one. Simone closed the door and leaned against it. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. The laughter she'd suppressed earlier bubbled up again, but she kept it inside. 6 months of planning. 6 months of quietly consulting lawyers, hiring investigators, documenting everything. 6 months of pretending she didn't know while building her exit strategy brick by brick. And now, finally, it was all coming together. She walked to her kitchen and poured herself a glass of wine. Through the window, she could see Denise sitting in her car, crying. Brandon was probably upstairs panicking, trying to figure out how this had all gone so wrong. They thought she'd crumble. They thought she'd cry and beg and try to save her marriage. They had no idea what was coming. Simone raised her glass to her reflection in the window. Here's to new beginnings, she whispered. The best part? This was only the beginning of their nightmare. And the beginning of her freedom. 6 months earlier, Simone had been reviewing their credit card statement at the kitchen table. It was a Monday evening. Brandon had texted saying he'd be late at work again. The 3rd time that week. She'd almost ignored the charge. Almost. But something made her look twice. A charge from a baby boutique downtown. $300. They didn't have children. They'd been trying for years with no success. Brandon had said he was fine waiting, that they had time. So why was he buying baby items? Simone had felt her stomach drop. She'd opened her laptop right there and started scrolling through months of statements. The pattern emerged quickly once she knew to look for it. Restaurants they'd never been to together. Hotels in the city when he claimed to be working late. Regular charges at a grocery store near Denise's apartment, not near their house or his office. Flowers from a shop Simone had never received flowers from. She'd sat there for an hour, documenting everything in a spreadsheet. Dates, times, amounts, locations. Her hands had shaken at first, but then they'd steadied. Numbers didn't lie. Patterns didn't lie. People did. The next morning, she'd called a divorce attorney. Not just any attorney, the best one she could find. Patricia Chin had a reputation for destroying cheating spouses in court. Her consultation fee alone was $500. Tell me everything, Patricia had said, sitting across from her in a downtown office with a view of the harbor. Simone had laid it all out. The suspicious charges. The late nights. The distance. The way Brandon had become protective of his phone. The way he'd stopped initiating intimacy with her. Patricia had listened without interrupting. When Simone finished, the lawyer had leaned back in her chair. Do you want to save your marriage or end it? I don't know yet, Simone had admitted. But I want to be prepared either way. Smart. Here's what we're going to do. Patricia had outlined a strategy. First, hire a private investigator to confirm the affair and identify the other woman. Second, start separating finances legally and quietly. Third, document everything. Fourth, protect Simone's assets, especially the house she'd inherited from her grandmother. Don't confront him yet, Patricia had warned. Anger makes people stupid. Let him think you're clueless. Meanwhile, we build an ironclad case. If you decide to divorce, he won't be able to touch your inheritance or your separate property. We'll trace every marital dollar he spent on this affair and make sure you're compensated. Simone had hired the private investigator that same day. His name was Robert Torres, a former police detective who now specialized in domestic cases. He'd been frank with her. Most of my clients already know the truth in their gut, he'd said. They hire me for proof. How much proof do you want? Everything, Simone had told him. I want to know who, when, where, how long, and how serious. 2 weeks later, Robert had called her to his office. The manila folder he'd slid across his desk had been thick. Her name is Denise Patterson, he'd said. Simone had felt the room tilt. What? Your husband is having an affair with Denise Patterson. They've been involved for approximately 3 years, possibly longer. She has a 2-year-old son. Based on the timeline and the fact that your husband has been present for pediatrician appointments, birthday parties, and regular overnight stays, there's a high probability he's the father. Denise. Her best friend Denise. Simone had sat there staring at surveillance photos. Brandon and Denise at dinner. Brandon and Denise leaving her apartment building together. Brandon playing with little Cameron at the park. Brandon kissing Denise goodbye in a parking garage. "Are you okay?" Robert had asked. "No," she'd said honestly. "But I will be." She'd taken the evidence home and spent the entire night going through it. Every photo. Every timestamp. Every detail. Then she'd cried. Really cried for the first and last time. She'd let herself feel the betrayal, the anger, the grief. By morning she was done crying. She'd called Patricia. "It's my best friend," she told the lawyer. Patricia had been quiet for a moment. "That changes things legally in some states. Alienation of affection. We can explore that. But first, are you divorcing him?" Simone had looked around the house her grandmother had left her. The house she'd grown up visiting every summer. The house that held real love and real memories, not fake ones built on lies. "Yes, I'm divorcing him. But I need time to prepare." "How much time?" 6 months. "I want to protect everything. I want to separate our finances without him noticing. I want documentation of every dollar he spent on her. And I want to start my own business so I'm financially independent when this goes down." Patricia had actually laughed. "You're going to do well in this divorce. Most people come to me emotional and reactive. You're strategic. I like it." Over the next 6 months, Simone had executed her plan with precision. She'd started her HR consulting business, using her inheritance as seed money. She told Brandon she was trying something new, and he barely paid attention, too busy with his secret life. She'd quietly moved her inheritance funds into accounts only in her name. Legal, since that money had never been marital property. She'd closed their joint savings account, splitting it exactly 50-50 and depositing her half into her business account. She'd documented every penny. She'd kept copies of everything. Credit card statements showing his spending on Denise. Text message records. Email confirmations of hotel stays. Robert's surveillance reports. Medical records from fertility treatments she'd undergone alone while Brandon claimed to be too busy with work to attend appointments. Appointments that coincided with him being with Denise. She'd consulted with Patricia regularly, making sure every move was legal and strategic. They'd prepared divorce papers with a restraining order. They'd filed for the house to be confirmed as her separate property. They'd calculated exactly how much marital money Brandon had spent on his affair. $43,000 over 3 years. And through it all, Simone had played the role of the oblivious wife. She'd made dinner. She'd asked about his day. She'd pretended to believe his lies. She'd smiled at Denise when they met for coffee, listening to her friend complain about being a single mother while knowing the truth. It had been the hardest performance of her life. But it had been necessary. Because when the truth came out, she wanted to be standing on solid ground. She wanted her business established. She wanted her finances protected. She wanted all the evidence organized and ready. She wanted to watch Brandon's face when he realized she'd known all along and had outsmarted him completely. 3 weeks ago, her business had landed its first major client, a Fortune 500 company that needed help restructuring their HR policies. The contract was worth $200,000. "You're ready," Patricia had told her. "Your business is profitable. Your assets are protected. Your evidence is overwhelming. Whenever you want to pull the trigger, we're ready." "Not yet," Simone had said. "I want him to confess first. I want them both to face me and admit what they've done. I want to see their faces when they think they're breaking my heart, and then I want to see their faces when they realize I already knew." Patricia had smiled. "You're either the most patient woman I've ever met or the most ruthless. Can't I be both?" Now, standing in her kitchen 6 months later with divorce papers served and Brandon packing upstairs, Simone knew the wait had been worth it. Every sleepless night. Every fake smile. Every moment of pretending not to know. All worth it. She pulled out her phone and texted Patricia, "It's done. He's been served." The response came immediately, "Good. Don't communicate with him directly from this point forward. Everything goes through me. How are you feeling?" Simone typed her response, "Free." The weeks following the announcement had been exactly as Simone predicted. Brandon had hired a lawyer, not a great one but an expensive one. He tried to claim he deserved half of her business, half of her house and spousal support. His lawyer had sent threatening letters. Simone had forwarded them all to Patricia without responding. "Let them waste their energy," Patricia had advised. "We have all the facts on our side." Simone had thrown herself into work. Her HR consulting firm, Restore Solutions, was growing faster than she'd anticipated. The Fortune 500 contract had led to referrals. She'd hired 2 employees and moved into a small office downtown. Every morning she woke up at 5. She went to the gym where she'd started taking kickboxing classes. Not because she wanted to physically fight anyone but because hitting things felt good. Then she'd shower, dress in one of the new power suits she'd bought, and go to work building something that was entirely hers. Her phone buzzed constantly with texts from Brandon. She never responded. Patricia had been clear. No direct communication. Everything had to go through lawyers. But she read them. Oh, she read them. We need to talk about this like adults. You're being unreasonable. Everyone makes mistakes. I still love you. We can fix this. You're going to regret throwing away 8 years. Denise means nothing to me. It was just physical. That last one had made her laugh out loud in her office. Her assistant, Monica, had poked her head in. Good news? Monica asked. The best kind, Simone had replied. The kind where someone shows you exactly who they are. Monica had worked for Simone for 3 weeks and had already proven invaluable. She was organized, discreet, and had a talent for managing difficult clients. She also, Simone suspected, knew something was going on in her personal life but was professional enough not to ask. The Anderson Group called, Monica said. They want to move forward with the full audit. That's another 6-month contract. Simone had smiled. The Anderson Group was a healthcare company with 15,000 employees. If she pulled off their HR restructuring successfully, it would establish her firm as a major player in the industry. Set up a meeting for next week. I want to bring our whole team. You got it. Also, your lawyer called. She said to call her back when you have a moment. Simone had dialed Patricia immediately. His lawyer is making noise about your business, Patricia had said without preamble. They're claiming that since you started it while still married, it's marital property. Except I funded it entirely with my inheritance. Exactly. We have documentation of every dollar. I sent them proof that the business accounts were never commingled with marital funds. They're grasping at straws. What about the house? They backed off that completely once we showed them the deed and your grandmother's will. It was never marital property. Brandon lived there, but he never had an ownership stake. Simone had felt a wave of relief. Her grandmother's house was more than just property. It was her last connection to the woman who'd raised her when her own mother hadn't been capable. She'd die before she let Brandon claim any part of it. They're going to focus on the affair spending, Patricia had continued. They're going to claim it was his money too and he could spend it how he wanted. Except he lied about what he was spending it on. He claimed business dinners and work expenses. I have tax returns where he wrote off some of those charges. Patricia had laughed. Oh, this just keeps getting better. Tax fraud on top of infidelity. I love it. Send me those tax returns. Already did. Check your email. You're my favorite client, you know that? After the call, Simone had sat back in her chair and looked around her office. 6 months ago, this space hadn't existed. She'd been a woman trapped in a dying marriage, working a job she tolerated but didn't love, believing her best friend actually cared about her. Now she was a business owner with a growing client list and a future that belonged only to her. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Brandon. I know you're reading these. Please, baby. Just talk to me. She blocked his number. She should have done it weeks ago. That evening she met her cousin Lauren for dinner. Lauren was the only family member she'd told about the divorce. The only one who knew the whole story. You look good, Lauren had said, hugging her tight. Like really good. Glowing. Revenge agrees with me, Simone had joked. They'd settled into a booth at their favorite Italian restaurant. Lauren had ordered wine for both of them. Tell me everything. How's the business? Simone had filled her in on the new contracts, the growing team, the office space. Lauren had listened, beaming with pride. And Brandon? Still trying to get me to talk to him. Still trying to claim my business. His lawyer is terrible though. Patricia is destroying him. What about Denise? Simone had taken a sip of wine. She'd been thinking about Denise a lot lately. I hope she's happy. She got what she wanted. A man who lies and cheats. A relationship built on betrayal. I'm sure that'll work out great for them. You're not curious about how they're doing? Not even a little bit. They're not my problem anymore. But that wasn't entirely true. She'd heard through mutual friends that Denise was struggling. Apparently, Brandon's financial situation was worse than expected. The legal fees from the divorce were piling up. His job had become unstable when colleagues found out about the affair, not because they cared about morality, but because he'd lied about his overtime and expenses. And now Denise had a man with no money, no integrity, and a child to support. The fantasy affair had become a complicated reality. Simone had heard they were fighting constantly. Good. You know what the best part is? Simone had told Lauren. I'm not even trying to ruin them. They're doing that all by themselves. I'm just over here building my life, and their lives are falling apart because they built everything on lies. Lauren had raised her glass. To karma. To karma, Simone had agreed. Later that night, alone in her house, Simone had walked through the rooms Brandon had vacated. She'd redecorated immediately. New paint. New furniture. New everything. The space felt lighter without his presence. Cleaner. She turned his old office into a reading room. The bedroom they'd shared was now entirely hers, with new linens and a new bed. She'd burned sage in every corner, which her grandmother would have approved of. The photos had been the hardest part. Wedding pictures. Vacation photos. Images of a life she'd thought was real. She'd packed them all in boxes and stored them in the basement. Maybe someday she'd throw them away. Maybe someday they wouldn't hurt to look at. But not yet. Her phone rang. Patricia again. Quick update. They've accepted that the house is yours. They've dropped the business claim after seeing our documentation. They're now focusing solely on trying to reduce the amount he owes you for the affair spending. How much are they trying to reduce it to? 20,000. From the original 43. Tell them 35 and we have a deal. I want this done. Patricia had paused. You sure? We could probably get the full amount. I'm sure. The faster this is over, the faster I can move on completely. 35,000, he keeps his car and his personal items, we split the joint account 50-50, and I never have to see or speak to him again. I'll make it happen. 2 days later, the settlement was agreed upon. Brandon would pay Simone $35,000 in restitution for marital funds spent on his affair. The house remained solely hers. Her business remained solely hers. They would file for an uncontested divorce based on adultery. The entire process would be finalized within 60 days. Simone had signed the papers without hesitation. How do you feel? Patricia had asked. Like I just took out the trash, Simone had replied. And she'd meant it. The official launch party for Restore Solutions happened on a crisp October evening, exactly 3 months after Brandon had been served with divorce papers. Simone had rented space at a downtown gallery, invited current and potential clients, and prepared a presentation about her company's mission. She wore a deep blue dress that made her brown skin glow. Her hair was styled in natural curls that framed her face. She felt beautiful, powerful, and completely herself. Monica had done an incredible job with the setup. The gallery space was elegant without being stuffy. Servers circulated with appetizers and drinks. A slideshow played on screens around the room, showcasing Restore Solutions' work with testimonials from satisfied clients. You ready for this? Monica asked, straightening Simone's collar. I've been ready, Simone replied. She took the microphone and looked out at the crowd of about 75 people. Some were current clients. Some were potential ones. Some were colleagues from her previous job who'd supported her leap into entrepreneurship. Her cousin Lauren was there, beaming with pride. Thank you all for coming, Simone began. 6 months ago, Restore Solutions was just an idea. A belief that companies perform better when their employees are treated with dignity and fairness. A commitment to helping organizations build cultures of respect and accountability. She clicked to the next slide, which showed their client list and results. Today we've worked with 5 major companies. We've helped restructure HR policies that protect employees while supporting business goals. We've mediated workplace conflicts. We've trained managers on ethical leadership. And we're just getting started. The crowd applauded. Simone felt a surge of pride. I started this business during one of the hardest periods of my life, she continued. I was ending a marriage. I was discovering that people I trusted had betrayed me. I could have let that break me. Instead, I let it fuel me. I took that pain and turned it into purpose. She wasn't looking at Brandon. He wasn't there. But she knew he'd hear about this. Someone would tell him. Someone would mention how successful she was becoming. How she'd taken her divorce settlement money and reinvested it into her business. How she was thriving. Restore Solutions is built on a simple principle. The best revenge is building a better life. Not tearing others down but lifting yourself up. Creating something meaningful. Becoming someone you're proud to be. More applause. Simone saw several people nodding along. So thank you for being part of this journey. Thank you for trusting us with your most valuable asset, your people. And thank you for believing that businesses can do well by doing good. After the presentation, people swarmed her with questions and congratulations. Business cards were exchanged. New connections were made. By the end of the evening, she had 3 solid leads for new contracts. That was incredible, Monica said as they cleaned up. You're a natural at this. I had good motivation, Simone replied, helping fold up presentation materials. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw your launch on social media. Looks like you're doing well. I'm happy for you. B. She deleted it without responding. Brandon didn't get to be part of her success story. He didn't get to pretend he'd supported her. He dismissed her business as a hobby when she'd started it. Now that it was succeeding, he wanted to offer congratulations? No, he didn't get that privilege. Lauren came up and hugged her. Grandma would be so proud of you. That made Simone's eyes sting with tears. You think so? I know so. She always said you had steel in your spine. You're proving it. The next morning, Simone woke up to an email from the CEO of the Anderson Group, the healthcare company she'd been courting for months. They wanted to move forward with the full contract. 6 months of work, potentially extending to a year. The revenue would allow her to hire 3 more employees and move to a larger office. She read the email 3 times to make sure it was real. Then she called Patricia. I got the Anderson contract, she said. Congratulations. That's huge. It is. And I wanted to say thank you. For everything. Not just the legal work, but for believing in me when I was planning all this. For helping me see that I could protect myself and build something new at the same time. Patricia's voice was warm. You did the hard work, Simone. I just showed you the path. You walked it. After hanging up, Simone sat in her kitchen, the kitchen in her grandmother's house that was completely, legally, undeniably hers, and let herself feel the full weight of what she'd accomplished. 6 months ago, she'd been a woman whose husband was cheating with her best friend. A woman who'd been lied to and betrayed by the 2 people she trusted most. Now she was a successful business owner with a growing company, a beautiful home, and a future filled with possibilities. The divorce would be final in 3 weeks. She'd already picked out her outfit for the court date. She'd already planned what she'd do afterward. Take herself to a nice dinner, buy herself flowers, and toast to new beginnings. Her phone rang. Monica. Sorry to call so early, but I just got off the phone with someone from Bennett Corporation. They heard about us through the Anderson Group. They want a consultation meeting. Simone smiled. Set it up. Also, a reporter from the Business Chronicle wants to interview you about women-owned businesses in the city. Interested? Absolutely. You're on fire, boss. Just getting started, Simone replied. And she meant it. The business was thriving, but she had bigger plans. She wanted to expand to multiple cities. She wanted to create a nonprofit arm that helped women in abusive or financially controlling relationships gain independence. She wanted to write a book about rebuilding after betrayal. She wanted to build an empire. Not because she needed to prove anything to Brandon or Denise. Not for revenge or validation. But because she could. Because she discovered she was capable of so much more than she'd ever imagined. Because her grandmother had left her a house, but Simone was going to leave a legacy. That evening, she drove past Denise's apartment building. She didn't mean to, it was on the way to meet Lauren for dinner. But when she saw Brandon's car parked outside, looking older and more beat up than she remembered, she felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. No curiosity. Just nothing. She kept driving, thinking instead about the Bennett Corporation meeting next week. About the interview with the Business Chronicle. About the life she was building brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. The best revenge wasn't destroying them. It was becoming someone they could never touch, never hurt, never diminish. It was becoming free. The divorce court date arrived on a gray November morning. Simone wore a charcoal suit with a white blouse. Professional. Calm. Unbothered. She arrived early with Patricia, who'd prepared her thoroughly. This should be straightforward, the lawyer had said. We have the settlement agreement. The judge just needs to review and approve it. Then you're done. Brandon was already there with his lawyer, a middle-aged man named Frank who'd clearly realized too late that his client had no case. Brandon looked terrible. He'd lost weight and not in a healthy way. His eyes had dark circles under them. His suit didn't fit right. Simone felt nothing looking at him. Not pity. Not satisfaction. Nothing. Denise wasn't there, which was probably smart. She had no legal standing in these proceedings, and her presence would have only made Brandon look worse. The judge, a stern-looking woman in her 60s, reviewed the settlement agreement. Mr. Thompson, You're agreeing to pay Ms. Walker $35,000 in restitution for marital funds inappropriately spent during an extramarital affair. Is that correct? Brandon's jaw tightened. Yes, Your Honor. And you acknowledge that the property at 412 Maple Street belongs solely to Ms. Walker as inherited property, and you have no claim to it? Yes, Your Honor. And you acknowledge that Restore Solutions, Ms. Walker's business, was funded entirely by her separate inheritance and you have no ownership stake in it? Brandon glanced at Simone. She kept her face neutral. Yes, Your Honor, he said quietly. Ms. Walker, is this settlement acceptable to you? Simone stood. Yes, Your Honor. I just want this marriage dissolved so I can move forward with my life. The judge nodded. Very well. This settlement is fair and equitable. I'm granting the divorce based on adultery as cited. The marriage between Simone Walker and Brandon Thompson is hereby dissolved. Mr. Thompson, you have 90 days to pay the restitution amount to Ms. Walker. Are there any questions? No, Your Honor, both lawyers said in unison. Then we're adjourned. That was it. 8 years of marriage dissolved in less than 15 minutes. Simone walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than she had in years. Patricia hugged her on the steps. Congratulations. You're officially free. Thank you. For everything. What are you going to do now? Simone smiled. I'm going to take myself to lunch, buy myself flowers, and then go back to work. I have a business to run. She turned to leave and nearly walked into Brandon. He'd followed her outside. Simone, wait. Can we talk? Just for a minute? Patricia stepped between them. All communication goes through me, Mr. Thompson. You know that. I just want 1 minute. Please. Simone looked at Patricia, who shrugged. It's your call. 1 minute, Simone said. And my lawyer stays right here. Brandon nodded and stepped a few feet away, Simone following. He looked at her with something that might have been regret. Or just self-pity. It was hard to tell. I'm sorry, he said. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I am. I was stupid. I threw away something real for something that wasn't. And now I've lost everything. Simone crossed her arms. Is this the part where I'm supposed to feel sorry for you? No. I needed you to know that I regret it. All of it. Okay. You've told me. Is that all? He looked surprised. That's it? That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Brandon? That I forgive you? That I understand? That we can be friends? She shook her head. I don't forgive you. I don't care to understand why you did it. And we will never be friends. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them. I heard your business is doing well. It is. Very well. That's good. I'm glad. He said it like he meant it, which somehow made it worse. Are you with Denise now? Simone asked, surprising herself. Brandon looked down. Yeah. We're trying to make it work. For Cameron. Good luck with that. She's not who I thought she was, he said quietly. When it was secret and exciting, it was different. Now that it's real life with bills and responsibilities and a kid, it's hard. Simone almost laughed. You mean reality isn't as fun as sneaking around and playing house? Who could have predicted that? I deserve that. You deserve worse. But I'm not going to give it to you. Because I don't care enough to waste my energy on you anymore. We're done, Brandon. Legally, emotionally, in every way that matters. Live your life. I'm going to live mine. She turned and walked back to Patricia without waiting for his response. How do you feel? Patricia asked as they walked to their cars. Free, Simone said. Completely, totally free. She went to her favorite restaurant and ordered a steak and a glass of expensive wine. She sat alone at a table by the window and savored every bite. Other diners probably thought she was waiting for someone. She wasn't. She was celebrating her own company. After lunch, she stopped at a florist and bought herself a huge bouquet of white roses. The florist, an elderly woman, had smiled at her. Special occasion? Very special. I just divorced my cheating husband and my business is thriving. I'm celebrating me. The woman had laughed and added extra flowers to the bouquet at no charge. Good for you, honey. You enjoy every minute of that freedom. Simone had taken the flowers to her office. Monica had whistled when she saw them. Hot date. The best kind. With myself. Monica had laughed. Boss, you're my hero. The rest of the day had been productive. Simone had finalized the Anderson contract terms. She'd hired 2 new employees to handle the increased workload. She'd responded to the Business Chronicle reporter with interview availability. That evening, Lauren had come over with champagne and takeout. To the newly divorced and incredibly successful Simone Walker, Lauren had toasted. I'll drink to that, Simone had replied. They'd sat on the floor of Simone's living room, eating Chinese food and drinking champagne straight from the bottle like they were in college again. Did you see him? Lauren had asked. At court. Yeah. He wanted to apologize. What did you say? That I don't care enough to forgive him or hate him. That we're done and he gets to live with his choices. Lauren had studied her cousin's face. And you meant it? You're really over it? Simone had thought about it honestly. Yeah, I am. I was over it before the divorce was even final. I was over it the second I decided to leave. Everything since then has just been paperwork. What about Denise? What about her? She's not my problem either. She got exactly what she wanted. A man who cheats and lies. I hope they're very unhappy together. They both laughed at that. You know what I realized? Simone had said. The affair was never about me. It wasn't because I wasn't enough or didn't do enough or wasn't pretty enough or successful enough. It was about Brandon's character. About his choices. About who he is fundamentally. That's very mature. I have a great therapist, Simone had admitted. She's helped me see that his betrayal says everything about him and nothing about me. I'm proud of you, Lauren had said softly. Thanks. I'm proud of me too. Later that night, alone in her bed, Simone had reflected on the day. The marriage was over. The legal battle was won. The business was thriving. She had her health, her house, her freedom, and her future. Brandon had his affair partner and their child. He had his regrets and his financial problems. He had the life he'd chosen. And she had the life she was building. There was no comparison. Simone fell asleep that night with a smile on her face, already thinking about tomorrow. About the Bennett Corporation meeting. About expanding her team. About the nonprofit she wanted to start. About everything that was possible now that she'd cut the dead weight loose. The trap had sprung perfectly. Brandon had confessed, thinking he was breaking her heart. Instead, he'd walked right into the prepared divorce that would cost him everything while she kept everything that mattered. And the best part? She hadn't had to do anything vindictive or cruel. She'd just documented the truth, protected what was hers, and let his own actions destroy him. Justice, it turned out, didn't always need revenge. Sometimes it just needed patience and good preparation. The aftermath of the divorce proved that while the marriage was over, the consequences were just beginning. Brandon had 90 days to pay the $35,000 settlement. He made the first payment late, which triggered penalty clauses Patricia had wisely included in the agreement. He's claiming financial hardship, Patricia informed Simone during a phone call. His lawyer is asking for a payment plan extension. Simone was in her office, reviewing a proposal for a new client. What does the agreement say? That late payments incur interest and penalties. He's already added $1,500 to what he owes you. Then the agreement stands. He should have thought about financial hardship before spending $43,000 on his affair. I'll let them know. But the payment issues were just the beginning. Word had spread about Brandon's affair, and his employer was not pleased. He worked for a financial firm that prided itself on integrity and ethics. Having an employee who'd lied about expenses and used company overtime falsely looked bad. Simone heard through mutual colleagues that Brandon had been encouraged to resign, which was corporate speak for, "We're firing you but letting you save face." She felt no sympathy. Meanwhile, Restore Solutions continued to grow. The Business Chronicle interview had run, featuring Simone on the cover of their Women in Business section. The headline read, "Rising from the Ashes, How Simone Walker Built an Empire After Betrayal." The article had been tactful, mentioning her recent divorce without dwelling on details. It focused instead on her business acumen, her vision for ethical HR practices, and her plans to expand nationally. The response was overwhelming. Her website crashed from traffic. Her email inbox filled with messages from women who'd gone through similar betrayals and found inspiration in her story. 3 major companies reached out about potential contracts. "You need a publicist," Monica told her. "This kind of attention is valuable, but you need someone managing it properly." Simone hired a PR firm the following week. They helped her craft a message that acknowledged her personal struggles while keeping the focus on professional success. They booked her on a local morning show to talk about workplace ethics and entrepreneurship. The morning of the TV appearance, Simone woke up nervous. She'd never been on television before. But she put on her best suit, did her makeup carefully, and drove to the studio. The hosts were warm and welcoming. They asked about her business, her approach to HR consulting, and briefly touched on her personal journey. "You've been open about going through a difficult divorce while building your business," the female host said. What advice would you give to women going through similar situations? Simone looked directly at the camera. Document everything. Protect your assets. Build your own financial independence. And understand that the best revenge isn't destroying them, it's building a life so good they become irrelevant to you. The segment went viral. The clip was shared thousands of times on social media. Women commented with their own stories of betrayal and rebuilding. Several news outlets picked it up. Brandon's new employer, he'd found a much lower-paying job at a small firm, reportedly asked him about it. The humiliation of having his ex-wife become successful while his own career tanked must have been brutal. Denise had apparently watched the segment too. Simone's cousin Lauren reported that Denise had posted on social media, "Some people build their careers by tearing others down. Real women lift each other up." Simone had laughed when she heard. The projection is incredible. She literally slept with her best friend's husband and now she's talking about women lifting each other up. Should you respond? Lauren had asked. No. Responding gives her attention she doesn't deserve. Let her post whatever she wants. My success speaks for itself. But the social media post did reveal something interesting. Denise was bothered. The affair that had seemed exciting and romantic was now a public embarrassment. People knew her as the woman who slept with her best friend's husband. Not a great reputation to have. Simone focused on work. The Bennett Corporation contract was signed. The Anderson Group project was going so well they'd extended the timeline and increased the budget. She'd hired 5 employees now, including a senior consultant who brought Fortune 100 experience. She moved Restore Solutions to a full floor of office space in a downtown building. The new office had a conference room, individual offices for senior staff, and an open workspace for the team. There was even a small kitchen and a relaxation area. On moving day, Monica had hugged her. "Remember when it was just you and me in that tiny office 6 months ago?" "I remember. Look at us now." The growth was dizzying but manageable. Simone had learned to delegate, to trust her team, to focus on strategy rather than trying to do everything herself. She took business courses at night. She joined professional organizations. She networked relentlessly. And through it all, Brandon continued to struggle. His second payment on the settlement was late again. More penalties. More interest. The $35,000 had grown to almost $40,000. Patricia called with an update. His lawyer is saying he can't make the payments. They're threatening bankruptcy. Can he do that? He can file for bankruptcy, but divorce settlements aren't typically dischargeable. Especially ones based on proven misconduct like this. We'd fight it and win. Do what you need to do. Simone refused to feel guilty. She hadn't forced Brandon to have an affair. She hadn't forced him to spend marital money on another woman. She hadn't forced him to lie and cheat and betray every vow he'd made. Those were his choices. These were his consequences. In December, 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Simone held a company holiday party. She'd rented a rooftop venue with views of the city lights. Her team of 15 employees celebrated with her, along with clients and partners. "I want to thank you all," Simone said, raising her glass. "This year has been incredible. We've grown from an idea to a thriving business. We've helped companies treat their people better. We've made a real difference. And we're just getting started. Next year we're expanding to 3 new cities. We're launching our nonprofit arm. We're doubling our team. Thank you for being part of this journey." The applause was genuine. These people believed in what they were building. They weren't just employees, they were a team united by a mission. After the party, Simone stood alone on the rooftop for a moment, looking out at the city. Somewhere down there, Brandon was probably struggling to make rent. Denise was probably dealing with a cranky toddler and a resentful partner. Their relationship, built on lies and betrayal, was almost certainly crumbling under the weight of reality. And up here, Simone was on top of the world. Not because she destroyed them, but because she built something they couldn't touch, couldn't diminish, couldn't take away. That was victory. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I saw your TV interview. You look happy. I'm glad. I know you probably hate me, but I want you to know I never meant to hurt you. I hope someday you can forgive me. Denise." After all this time trying to reach out, Simone didn't respond, didn't block the number, just deleted the message and put her phone away. Forgiveness wasn't something Denise deserved or had earned. And more importantly, it wasn't something Simone needed to give in order to move forward. She'd already moved forward. Miles and miles forward. So far forward that Denise and Brandon were just tiny specks in her rearview mirror. Barely visible. Barely relevant. Barely remembered. The new year brought new opportunities. Simone had been invited to speak at a women's entrepreneurship conference in Chicago. The event drew over 2,000 attendees and she was one of the keynote speakers. Standing backstage waiting to go on, she felt a flutter of nerves. But it was the good kind. The excited kind. The kind that came from being on the edge of something bigger. "You're on in 5, a stagehand told her. Simone took a deep breath and walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. The spotlight was bright, but she could see faces in the audience. Women of all ages, all backgrounds, all there to learn and grow and build. "Good morning," she began. "My name is Simone Walker and 2 years ago, my life fell apart in the best possible way." She told her story. Not all of it, but enough. The betrayal. The decision to prepare instead of react. The 6 months of strategic planning. The launch of her business. The divorce. The success that followed. "I'm not here to tell you that betrayal is easy," she said. "It's not. It's devastating. It makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself and the people you loved. But I am here to tell you that it doesn't have to define you. You can let it destroy you or you can let it fuel you." She clicked to a slide showing Restore Solutions' growth trajectory. This is what happens when you take pain and turn it into purpose. When you channel anger into ambition. When you decide that the best response to being underestimated is to become undeniable. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. Your betrayers want you to fall apart. They want you to be smaller, weaker, less than you were before. Don't give them that satisfaction. Instead, become bigger. Become stronger. Become so successful, so happy, so fulfilled that they become completely irrelevant to your story. The applause was deafening. After the speech, women lined up to talk to her. They shared their own stories of divorce, betrayal, career setbacks. They asked for advice. They thanked her for giving them hope. One woman, probably in her 50s, gripped Simone's hand tightly. "My husband left me for his assistant 6 months ago. I've been so depressed I can barely get out of bed. But listening to you, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can rebuild." Simone looked her in the eye. "You absolutely can. And you will. Start small. Document everything. Protect yourself legally. Then start thinking about what you want your life to look like. Not what it used to be, but what it could become." The woman left with tears in her eyes but a determined set to her shoulders. The conference was just the beginning. More speaking invitations followed. A literary agent reached out about a book deal. A national morning show wanted to feature her story. Simone was becoming known not just as a successful businesswoman, but as an advocate for women rebuilding after betrayal. It hadn't been her initial plan, but it felt right. It felt meaningful. Back home, Restore Solutions continued to grow. They'd opened offices in Atlanta and Dallas. The team was now 40 people strong. Revenue had quadrupled from the first year. Simone had moved out of her grandmother's house into a stunning penthouse downtown. She'd kept the house, though, renting it to a young family. Her grandmother would have liked that, the house being filled with love and laughter again. The penthouse was modern and sleek, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was hers, bought with money she'd earned through her own work. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every detail reflected her taste and no one else's. She created a home office with built-in bookshelves and a view that inspired her every morning. This was where she worked on the book proposal, wrote speeches, planned the next phase of business expansion. One evening, Monica called with news. "You're not going to believe this. The Today Show wants you for a full segment. National television. They want to talk about your business and your foundation." The foundation. That was the newest development. Simone had officially launched Restore Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping women gain financial independence after leaving abusive or controlling relationships. They offered free financial counseling, legal consultation, and job training. The foundation was funded by a portion of Restore Solutions' profits and private donations. In just 6 months, they'd helped over 200 women. "Tell them yes," Simone said. "When do they want me?" "Next month. They're doing a series on women overcoming adversity." The Today Show segment was incredible. The hosts were warm and engaged. They asked thoughtful questions about both the business and the foundation. They showed footage of women the foundation had helped, their faces blurred for privacy but their gratitude evident. "What would you say to women who are in situations like you were in?" one host asked. "I'd say, start planning. You don't have to leave today. You don't have to make dramatic moves right away. But start documenting. Start saving. Start building your exit strategy. And know that there's an entire community ready to support you when you're ready to take that step." The segment ended with information about the Restore Foundation and how to access their services. Within hours, the foundation's website was flooded with requests for help. Simone's email was overwhelmed with messages from women thanking her, asking for advice, sharing their own stories. She hired 2 people just to manage the foundation's increased demand. Meanwhile, Brandon's life had continued its downward spiral. Through the inevitable small-town gossip network, Simone heard that he and Denise had broken up. Apparently, the financial stress and constant fighting had been too much. Denise had kicked him out. Brandon was now living in a studio apartment, struggling to make child support payments for Cameron, and working 2 jobs to try to pay off the settlement he still owed Simone. Simone felt nothing hearing this news. Not satisfaction. Not pity. Nothing. He was a stranger now. Someone she used to know. Someone whose choices had led him to exactly where he was. Denise, according to Lauren, was bitter and struggling. She'd posted something on social media about people who succeed by playing the victim, which was clearly directed at Simone. Should we respond? Lauren had asked. No. Let her be bitter. It doesn't affect me at all. And it didn't. Simone was too busy building her empire, helping other women, planning her next moves. She didn't have time or energy to worry about 2 people who'd made terrible choices and were now living with the consequences. The book deal came through. A major publisher offered her a substantial advance for a book tentatively titled Rebuilding, Turning Betrayal into Breakthrough. She'd spend the next year writing it while continuing to run her business and foundation. She hired a writing coach to help her structure the narrative. The book would blend personal story with practical advice, addressing both the emotional journey of betrayal and the strategic steps needed to rebuild. One night, working on a chapter about forgiveness, Simone paused. Did she forgive Brandon and Denise? She thought about it honestly. Forgiveness felt like the wrong word. She didn't hate them anymore, which had been true for a long time. She didn't wish them harm. She didn't think about them much at all. What she felt was indifference. Complete, total indifference. They were people who'd hurt her once. People whose actions had inadvertently pushed her toward a better life. People who no longer mattered in any meaningful way. Was that forgiveness? Or was it just moving on so completely that forgiveness became irrelevant? She wasn't sure. But it felt like freedom either way. 18 months after the divorce, Simone received an unexpected email from Brandon's lawyer. He was requesting to reduce the remaining settlement payments due to extreme financial hardship. Patricia forwarded the email with a note. Up to you. We can fight this or accept a reduced amount. He's paid about $22,000 so far. Still owes $18,000 with penalties and interest. Simone thought about it. $18,000 wasn't going to change her life. She didn't need it. But the principle mattered. Counteroffer, she wrote back. $15,000 paid in full within 60 days, or the full amount stays in place with continued penalties for late payment. His choice. Brandon accepted. The money arrived in 2 weeks, a cashier's check for $15,000. Simone donated the entire amount to the Restore Foundation. You gave it away? Lauren asked, incredulous. Just like that. It was never about the money, Simone explained. It was about accountability. About him facing consequences. He paid. Now I'm using that money to help other women. Feels right. The donation allowed the foundation to expand services. They hired 3 more counselors and opened a second office location. They started a job training program teaching women marketable skills. Word of Simone's donation got out. She suspected Patricia had mentioned it to someone, and it brought even more positive press. The narrative was perfect. Woman betrayed by husband uses settlement money to help other betrayed women. A national women's magazine did a full feature on her. The photo shoot was incredible. They shot her in her penthouse office, looking powerful and peaceful. The article was titled, The Revenge of Success, How Simone Walker Turned Heartbreak into Healing. Meanwhile, the consequences for Brandon and Denise continued to mount. Brandon's job situation remained unstable. He'd been fired from the second firm for performance issues and was now working freelance, barely making ends meet. His relationship with Cameron was strained. Denise had made it difficult for him to have consistent visitation. Denise herself was struggling. Being known as the other woman had affected her social life. Friends had distanced themselves. Her own family, Simone heard, was disappointed in her choices. She'd lost her job due to the stress and was working part-time retail. The romantic affair had become a nightmare of poverty, resentment, and broken promises. Simone learned all this not because she was investigating them, but because people kept telling her. Mutual acquaintances, former friends, even strangers who somehow knew the story and wanted to update her. She always responded the same way, "I hope they figure things out. I'm focused on my own life." And she was. Restore Solutions had been named one of the fastest growing businesses in the region. They'd opened a fourth office in Denver. The team was now 60 people. Revenue had hit 8 figures. The book was nearly finished. Simone had poured her heart into it, balancing vulnerability with practical advice. Her editor loved it. The publisher was planning a major marketing campaign. "This could be a bestseller," her editor told her during a call. "Your story is compelling, but it's the practical framework you've built around it that makes it special. Women don't just want inspiration, they want a roadmap. You've given them both." The foundation had helped over 500 women by this point. They'd partnered with legal aid societies, financial advisors, and career counselors. They'd created a comprehensive support system. One woman, Jennifer, had come to them 6 months ago, fleeing a financially controlling marriage. She'd arrived with nothing but her clothes and her 2 children. The foundation had helped her file for divorce, get an emergency restraining order, find temporary housing, and enroll in their job training program. She just accepted a position as a medical billing specialist making $40,000 a year. "You saved my life," Jennifer had told Simone at a foundation event. "I didn't think I could do this. I thought I was trapped. But you showed me there was a way out." Stories like Jennifer's made everything worthwhile. In the fall, 2 years after the divorce, Simone was invited to speak at a national business conference. The topic was resilience in entrepreneurship. She was on a panel with 3 other successful business owners. During the Q&A, someone asked, "What's the biggest myth about success after failure?" Simone had answered, "That revenge has to be destructive. The biggest myth is that hurting the people who hurt you is somehow satisfying. It's not. Real revenge is building something so good, so successful, so meaningful that they become irrelevant. That's power." The moderator had followed up, "Do you ever hear from your ex-husband?" "No. And I prefer it that way. He's living his life. I'm living mine. They're completely separate as they should be." The audience had applauded. After the panel, a woman approached Simone. She was probably in her 40s, well-dressed, with tired eyes. "I'm going through something similar," she said quietly. "My husband's been cheating with his business partner. Everyone keeps telling me to forgive him, to try counseling, to save my marriage. But I don't want to. I want out. Is that wrong?" Simone looked at her with compassion. "It's not wrong to refuse to accept betrayal. It's not wrong to choose yourself. Start documenting everything. Get a good lawyer. Build your exit strategy. And don't let anyone shame you for having standards." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. I needed to hear that." These moments happen frequently now. Women seeking validation for their anger, permission to leave, hope that life could be good again. Simone gave them all the same message: you deserve better. You can build better. And you will survive this. That night, alone in her hotel room, Simone reflected on how far she'd come. From a woman crying in her kitchen over credit card statements to a business leader, author, and advocate helping hundreds of women. Brandon and Denise had thought they were so clever. So sneaky. They'd thought Simone would never find out, and if she did, she'd fall apart. Instead, their betrayal had been the catalyst for the best transformation of her life. The consequences they were facing, financial hardship, social ostracism, personal unhappiness, those were all self-inflicted. Simone hadn't destroyed them. They destroyed themselves by building their relationship on lies, betrayal, and selfishness. Simone had simply moved on and built something beautiful. That was the real revenge, thriving while they struggled. Not because she'd sabotaged them, but because they'd sabotaged themselves. Justice, sometimes, was just letting karma do its work while you focused on becoming your best self. 3 years after the divorce, Simone's life looked completely different. Her book, Rebuilding, Turning Betrayal into Breakthrough, had been on the bestseller list for 6 weeks. She'd been on a book tour across 15 cities, speaking to packed audiences of women hungry for her message. The Restore Foundation had expanded nationally with offices in 10 cities. They'd helped over 2,000 women gain independence from controlling or abusive situations. They'd partnered with corporations to create job placement programs specifically for their clients. Restore Solutions had gone international, opening offices in London and Toronto. The team was over 100 people. Simone had promoted Monica to Chief Operating Officer. They'd brought in experienced executives to manage different divisions. And Simone herself had stepped into the role she was meant for: visionary and advocate. She spent less time on day-to-day operations and more time on strategy, speaking, writing, and foundation work. She'd also started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but she'd gone on a few dates with a professor of economics named Jordan. He was intelligent, kind, and had no connection to her past life. They'd met at a business conference where they were both speakers. "I Googled you," Jordan had admitted on their third date. "I know about your ex-husband. About the affair. I'm sorry you went through that." "Thank you," Simone had said. "But honestly, it feels like it happened to a different person. I'm not that woman anymore." "Who are you now?" She'd smiled. "Someone who knows exactly what she wants and won't settle for less." Jordan had raised his glass. "I like that." The relationship was easy and comfortable. Jordan respected her time and independence. He supported her work without trying to manage or control it. He made her laugh. It wasn't the passionate, all-consuming romance of her early relationship with Brandon. It was better. It was based on mutual respect, honest communication, and genuine compatibility. Lauren had approved immediately. "He's good for you. Normal. Stable. Not a lying cheater." "The bar is pretty low," Simone had joked. "But he clears it easily." Meanwhile, updates about Brandon and Denise had become increasingly rare. Simone didn't ask about them, and people eventually stopped offering information. What she did hear, through the inevitable grapevine, was that they'd tried to reconcile briefly but it hadn't worked. Denise was now a single mother, working full-time and struggling. Brandon had moved to another state, reportedly trying to start over. Cameron, the innocent child caught in all this, was now 6 years old. Simone hoped he was okay. None of this was his fault. But beyond that passing thought, she didn't dwell on any of them. They were truly part of her past now. Simone's present was full and meaningful. The foundation was planning a gala fundraiser. The business was bidding on contracts with 3 Fortune 100 companies. She was being considered for a prestigious business award. And personally, she was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy in a way she hadn't been even in the early days of her marriage. Because this happiness wasn't dependent on anyone else. It wasn't built on someone else's validation or presence. It was hers, earned through hard work, resilience, and choosing herself every single day. One evening, she sat in her penthouse with Jordan, looking out at the city lights. They'd just had dinner, he'd cooked, which impressed her, and were drinking wine and talking. "Can I ask you something?" Jordan said. "Of course. Do you ever regret not trying to work it out with your ex? With counseling or whatever?" Simone thought about it honestly. "No. Not even a little bit. He didn't just cheat, he lied for years. He spent marital money on another woman. He betrayed me with my best friend. Those aren't mistakes. Those are character reveals. And once I saw who he really was, there was nothing to work out." "Fair enough. I just wondered if you ever thought about what might have been." "I think about what is instead. And what is pretty amazing." Jordan smiled and kissed her gently. "Yes, it is." Later that week, Simone gave a speech at a university about entrepreneurship and resilience. During the Q&A, a young woman raised her hand. "My boyfriend cheated on me last year. I'm still so angry." "How did you let go of the anger?" Simone had answered, "I didn't let go of it exactly. I channeled it. Every time I felt angry, I worked out harder. I worked on my business plan longer. I pushed myself further. Eventually, the anger burned itself out because I'd transformed it into fuel. And when the fuel was gone, I realized I didn't need it anymore. I was running on joy and purpose instead." The student had nodded, taking notes. Another hand went up. "Do you ever worry that your ex will try to come back? Like, now that you're successful, will he try to get back together?" Simone had laughed. "Let him try." The answer would be no. "But honestly, I don't think he will. He knows that bridges burned. And even if he doesn't, I do. There's no amount of apology or change that would make me want him back. I've tasted freedom and success in building something myself. I'll never go back to a relationship built on lies." The audience had applauded. After the speech, the young woman who'd asked about anger approached Simone. "I'm thinking about starting a business," she said. "But I'm scared." "Of what?" "Failing. Being alone. Not being enough." Simone had taken her hands. "Listen to me. You are enough. Right now, exactly as you are enough. And failure? Failure is just information. It tells you what doesn't work so you can find what does. As for being alone is better than being with someone who doesn't value you. Trust me on that." The girl had hugged her, crying a little. "Thank you." These moments reminded Simone why she did this work. Why she shared her story publicly even though it was sometimes painful. Why she put herself out there? Because her pain could become someone else's roadmap. Her breakthrough could light someone else's path. That evening, Simone met with the foundation board to discuss expansion plans. They wanted to create a mentorship program pairing successful professional women with foundation clients. We need volunteers who can commit to at least 6 months, the program director explained. Women who've been through similar situations and come out the other side. I'll do it, Simone said immediately. The board looked surprised. You're already so busy. I'll make time. This is important. Besides, I remember what it felt like to have no one to talk to who understood. If I can be that person for someone else, I want to be. The program launched 2 months later. Simone was matched with a woman named Tasha, 32 years old, leaving a 15-year marriage to a man who'd financially controlled every aspect of her life. Their first meeting was at a coffee shop. Tasha was nervous, playing with her cup. I don't know how to do any of this, she admitted. I've never had my own bank account. I've never paid a bill. He handled everything and told me it was because he loved me and wanted to take care of me. Now I realize he was keeping me dependent. Simone remembered that feeling. The helplessness. The fear. You're going to learn. And you're going to be amazed at how capable you are. Trust me. Over the next 6 months, Simone met with Tasha weekly. They worked on basic financial literacy, job interview skills, building confidence, setting boundaries. Watching Tasha transform from a scared, uncertain woman to someone who just signed a lease on her own apartment and started a new job was incredibly rewarding. I never would have believed I could do this, Tasha told Simone at their final mentorship meeting. I thought I needed him, but I don't. I just needed someone to believe in me until I could believe in myself. You did the work, Simone said. I just walked beside you. You did more than that. You showed me what's possible. You proved that life can be better on the other side. These words stayed with Simone. This was her purpose. Not just building a successful business but showing other women what was possible. Being proof that betrayal didn't have to be the end of the story, it could be the beginning of a better one. 3 years ago, she'd been crying in her kitchen over credit card statements. Now she was changing lives. That was victory. 4 years after the divorce, Simone stood on stage at the National Women's Leadership Summit, accepting the Entrepreneur of the Year award. The ballroom was filled with over 1,000 people, all standing and applauding. Thank you, she said into the microphone, her voice steady and strong. 4 years ago, I was at the lowest point of my life. My marriage was ending. My trust was shattered. I felt like a failure. She paused, looking out at the crowd. But that low point became my launching point. I learned that we get to choose what breaks us and what makes us. Betrayal could have destroyed me. Instead, I let it fuel me. The audience was silent, listening intently. Today, Restore Solutions operates in 6 countries with over 200 employees. We've helped hundreds of companies create better workplace cultures. The Restore Foundation has assisted over 3,000 women in gaining independence from controlling situations. My book has reached millions of readers. She held up the award. But this isn't just mine. This belongs to every woman who chose herself, who walked away from what was hurting her and toward what could heal her, who decided that her life was worth fighting for. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, Simone was surrounded by well-wishers, colleagues, and media. Jordan stood off to the side, beaming with pride. They'd been together for over a year now, and their relationship had deepened into something solid and real. I'm so proud of you, he said when she finally made her way to him. Thank you for being here. Wouldn't be anywhere else. The success was real and measurable. But what mattered more to Simone was the internal transformation. She was no longer the woman who'd hidden her pain and pretended everything was fine. She was someone who'd faced her pain, processed it, and used it to create meaning. The book had evolved into a series. Her publisher wanted her to write about business growth, about leadership, about philanthropy. She was becoming known as a thought leader, not just a survivor. Restore Solutions had been acquired by a larger consulting firm for a sum that made Simone financially secure for life. She'd stayed on as CEO and maintained majority control, but the acquisition provided resources for even faster growth. The foundation had become her primary focus. She'd hired a full executive team to run it and was planning to step back from the business side to focus on advocacy and expansion. She'd bought her dream home, a beautiful modern house with a garden and space for everything she loved. She'd filled it with art and books and things that made her happy. And through it all, she'd never heard from Brandon or Denise. Not a single word in 4 years. Until the email arrived. It came on a Tuesday morning. Subject line, I owe you an apology. Simone stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Simone, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you've moved on and built an incredible life. I've followed your success from a distance and I'm genuinely happy for you. I'm writing because I owe you a real apology. Not the half-hearted one I gave at the courthouse. A real one. What I did was unforgivable. I betrayed you in the worst possible way with someone you trusted. I lied for years. I spent our money on an affair. I disrespected you in our marriage. There's no excuse. I've spent the last 4 years trying to rebuild my life and failing because I was building on a foundation of lies and selfishness. I've lost everything that mattered and I deserve to. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I destroyed and I'm sorry. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. I hope you're as happy as you seem to be. I hope Jordan treats you the way I should have. You earned every bit of your success. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough or good enough to be the partner you deserved. Brandon. Simone read it twice. Then she closed it and deleted it. She felt nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. No desire to respond. Just nothing. The apology was 4 years too late. And more importantly, it was irrelevant. She didn't need his apology to move forward. She'd already moved forward. Miles and miles forward. She didn't hate him. She didn't forgive him. She simply didn't care enough to feel anything at all. That evening she told Jordan about the email. Are you okay? He asked. I'm fine. Really. It doesn't affect me at all. Do you want to respond? No. What would I say? I've built a whole life that has nothing to do with him. He doesn't get to be part of my story anymore, even as someone I'm forgiving or making peace with. He's just gone. Jordan had nodded, understanding. 2 weeks later, Simone gave the keynote speech at the Restore Foundation's annual gala. The event raised over $2 million for the foundation's programs. 4 years ago, she told the crowd, I thought my life was ending. Today, I know it was just beginning. We've helped thousands of women discover their strength. We've shown them that they don't need to stay in situations that diminish them, that they deserve respect, dignity, and freedom. She gestured to the crowd where many of the foundation's clients sat, dressed in their finest, celebrating how far they'd come. Look at these incredible women. They left abuse. They left control. They left betrayal. And they built new lives. They got educations. They started careers. They became independent. They became free. That's what this foundation is about, freedom. The freedom to choose yourself. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Later, Tasha, Simone's former mentee, approached her. I'm starting college next month, she said, her face glowing. Business administration. I want to do what you do, help other women. Simone hugged her tightly. You're going to be amazing. I wouldn't be here without you. Yes, you would. You just might have taken a different path. But your strength? That was always yours. As the evening wound down, Simone stood alone for a moment watching the celebration. The women dancing, laughing, celebrating their freedom and futures. The donors and supporters who made this work possible. The staff who worked tirelessly to help each client. This was her legacy. Not revenge. Not bitterness. Not destruction. But creation. Building something that helped others. Turning her pain into purpose. Brandon and Denise were somewhere living their lives. She hoped they'd learned from their mistakes. She hoped they were better people now. But honestly, it didn't matter to her either way. What mattered was this. She'd taken the worst betrayal of her life and used it to become the best version of herself. She'd lost a cheating husband and a fake friend. She'd gained an empire, a mission, and genuine happiness. That was complete victory. Jordan appeared at her elbow. Ready to go home? Home. Her beautiful house that she'd bought with her own money. The place where she felt safe and happy and entirely herself. Yeah, she said, taking his hand. Let's go home. As they walked out into the cool night air, Simone looked up at the stars. Her grandmother used to tell her that everything happened for a reason. That sometimes the worst things led to the best things. She'd been right. The betrayal had been terrible. The pain had been real. But it had led her here, to success, purpose, love, and complete freedom. She squeezed Jordan's hand and smiled. The revenge was in the living well. In the becoming. In the rising from the ashes stronger and brighter than before. And she'd risen like a phoenix, beautiful, powerful, and completely reborn.